The skies over Shanghai turned violet as the first Vanguard research vessel pushed through the atmosphere. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from her laboratory at the Institute of Advanced Sciences, her heart pounding against her ribs. The alien ship hung in the air like a twisted crystal, its surface rippling with patterns of light that seemed to defy physics. "Their energy signature is off the charts," her assistant, Wei, muttered, eyes fixed on the readings from their atmospheric monitors. "It's like they don't care about efficiency at all." Sarah frowned, studying the data streaming across her screens. After 6 months of Vanguard occupation, something about their technology still bothered her. For a species capable of interstellar travel, their methods seemed oddly wasteful. The building trembled as another ship descended, this one heading for the sprawling research complex the Vanguard had established on the outskirts of the city. Sarah knew what happened in those facilities. She'd seen the specimens they brought in. Humans, treated like lab rats by beings who viewed Earth as nothing more than an interesting petri dish. Her tablet chirped with an incoming message. "Meeting in Sublevel 3. Bring your latest analysis." The resistance had grown since the Vanguard's arrival, but it remained painfully small. Most of humanity had been shocked into submission by the aliens' overwhelming technological superiority. The Vanguard hadn't come as conquerors, they'd arrived as scientists, viewing humans as primitive subjects worthy only of study. Sarah grabbed her tablet and a small device she'd been working on, concealing both in her lab coat. The elevator ride to Sublevel 3 felt endless. The facility's underground levels had been officially decommissioned months ago, the perfect cover for their clandestine operations. Major David Rodriguez waited in the dimly lit conference room, along with representatives from other resistance cells. His face was gaunt, marked by sleepless nights and the weight of commanding what remained of Earth's military forces. "What have you found?" he asked as Sarah connected her tablet to the room's secure network. "Look at these energy patterns," she said, projecting a holographic display of Vanguard ship readings. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly wasteful. They use massive amounts of power for simple tasks, with multiple redundant systems that seem to serve no purpose." "How does that help us?" asked Colonel Zhang, the Chinese military's representative. "Their inefficient technology is still centuries beyond our capabilities." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Because inefficiency means waste, and waste means—" She paused, bringing up another set of readings. "They're leaving behind perfectly functional components, things they consider obsolete or too damaged to bother recovering." She placed the small device she brought on the table. It was crude-looking, assembled from salvaged parts, but the light pulsing at its core was unmistakably similar to Vanguard technology. "This is a power cell I rebuilt from components they discarded," she explained. "It's not as powerful as their versions, but it's more efficient. They solve problems by brute force, throwing more energy at them. We can't match their power output, but we can be smarter about how we use it." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Rodriguez leaned forward, studying the device. "You're saying we can use their own technology against them?" "Better," Sarah replied. "I'm saying we can improve it. They've never had to worry about resource constraints or efficiency. Their technology is advanced but stagnant. They haven't had to innovate in centuries." She brought up more data, showing her analysis of various salvaged components. "Their arrogance is their weakness. They're so convinced of their superiority that they don't even bother securing their disposal sites. To them, it's like leaving primitive tools around cavemen. They don't think we're capable of understanding their technology, let alone improving it." "How long?" Rodriguez asked, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "How long until we can build something useful?" "We already have," Sarah said, activating her rebuilt power cell. The device hummed to life, projecting a shield bubble that encompassed the entire table. "This shield generator uses 1/10 of the power of their smallest portable units. It's not as strong, but it's completely invisible to their scans because they've never seen anything like it. Rodriguez's eyes gleamed with the first real hope she'd seen in months. Get me a list of everything you need. Personnel, resources, secure locations, whatever it takes. If we can understand their technology, we can beat them at their own game. Sarah finished. But we need to be smart about this. If they realize what doing. A test chamber had been set up at the far end of the tunnel. Inside, a prototype vehicle powered by hybrid human vanguard technology hovered silently. Unlike the alien ships, which announced their presence with ostentatious displays of power, this craft was designed to be subtle, efficient, and most importantly, undetectable to vanguard sensors. How soon until we can begin production? Rodriguez asked, studying the prototype. We're ready to start now, Sarah replied. The real question is, how long do we wait? Every day gives us more opportunities to improve our technology, but it also risks discovery. The Major nodded, understanding the dilemma. We keep building, he decided. We keep learning. The Vanguard think they're conducting the greatest scientific study in their history. Let them keep thinking that while we prepare our response. As if to emphasize his point, another alert came in. The Vanguard had discarded a batch of outdated quantum computers. To them, it was trash. To humanity, it was another opportunity to grow stronger. Sarah returned to her workstation, where she was developing a new project, a way to not just copy Vanguard technology, but to fundamentally transform it. The aliens had given humanity access to advanced technology, but humans were doing something the Vanguard had never imagined. They were making it better. In their hidden facilities around the world, humanity was not just surviving. They were evolving. The Vanguard's arrogance had given them the perfect cover, and their wasteful practices had provided the tools. Now, it was only a matter of time before humanity would show their observers that they had severely underestimated their test subjects. The underground facility in Sydney shook as a Vanguard research vessel passed overhead. Dr. Sarah Chen barely noticed. After 18 months of working in hidden bases, such occurrences had become routine. She was focused on the holographic display before her, watching as the latest test of their adaptive circuitry yielded unprecedented results. It's evolving faster than we predicted, Aisha said, her voice tight with excitement. The quantum processor they'd modified wasn't just working, it was creating new pathways, optimizing itself in ways their simulations hadn't anticipated. Send this to all bases, Sarah instructed, already documenting the breakthrough. This is what we've been waiting for. Major Rodriguez, who had flown in from New York for this test, studied the data with intense concentration. The adaptive technology they'd developed had taken the basic principles of Vanguard computing and transformed them into something entirely new. Explain it to me again, he requested, in terms a soldier can understand. Sarah gestured to the processor. The Vanguard built their technology to be perfect from the start. Unchanging, reliable, but rigid. We've created systems that learn and adapt. Every problem they solve makes them better. Every challenge makes them stronger. Like muscle memory, Aisha added, the more you use it, the more efficient it becomes. A sudden alert drew their attention. Above them, the Vanguard vessel had begun another of their routine scans of the city ruins. The resistance facility's shielding, developed from improved alien tech, kept them hidden. But these moments were always tense. They're still looking for signs of organized resistance, Rodriguez noted, watching the sensor readings, still convinced we're nothing more than scattered survivors. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Vanguard's latest research report, intercepted by their cyber teams, had classified human civilization as effectively regressed to pre-industrial state due to psychological impact of superior presence. If only they knew. In the massive chamber beyond the control room, rows of hybrid vessels stood ready. They were smaller than Vanguard ships, but far more sophisticated in their design. Each one incorporated the adaptive technology, meaning they would become more effective with every mission. Moscow reports their first squadron is complete, Rodriguez said, checking his secure tablet. Berlin, Shanghai, and Cape Town are at 80% readiness. We're approaching critical mass. Sarah nodded, but her attention was drawn to a new development in the processor's behavior. Look at this, she called out. The adaptive circuitry had begun creating entirely new configurations, developing solutions to problems they hadn't even posed yet. It's not just learning, Aisha breathed. It's innovating. This was the advantage they'd been working toward. While the vanguard remained static in their technological development, humanity had created systems that could evolve and improve on their own. They won't, Colonel Zhang interjected. Their research complex in Shanghai. They're expanding it. They're so focused on studying us, they don't realize we're studying them. Sarah nodded, already planning her next steps. We need to establish similar operations globally. Every piece of technology they discard is an opportunity. They think they're observing humanity's submission, but they're really watching the beginning of our comeback. As the meeting concluded and plans were set in motion, Sarah looked at her small shield generator. The vanguard had come to Earth expecting to find simple test subjects. Instead, they had given humanity exactly what it needed, a chance to prove that necessity truly was the mother of invention. In research facilities and hidden bunkers across the globe, the seeds of resistance were being planted. The vanguard's greatest mistake wasn't in underestimating humanity's current capabilities, but in failing to understand human ingenuity and determination. They thought they were writing humanity's final chapter. They didn't realize they were only writing the prologue to their own downfall. 3 months after the resistance meeting in Shanghai, Sarah Chen stood in a repurposed subway tunnel beneath New York City, surrounded by salvaged vanguard technology. The makeshift laboratory hummed with activity as scientists from around the world worked to understand and improve the alien tech. Their quantum processors are remarkable, Dr. Aisha Patel said, manipulating a holographic display of a salvaged computing core. But look at this architecture. They're using massive parallel systems for simple calculations. It's like using a sledgehammer to drive a nail. Sarah nodded, reviewing the data on her tablet. The more they studied vanguard technology, the more they found similar patterns of over-engineering. The aliens had solved every problem by adding more power, more processors, more redundancy. They'd never needed to think differently. Major Rodriguez, a voice called over the secure comm system. The vanguard just dropped off another load at the Boston disposal site. David Rodriguez, who had established his command center in the tunnel network, pulled up the surveillance feed. The aliens were becoming increasingly careless with their waste disposal, dumping everything from damaged ship components to outdated research equipment. They're getting sloppy, he observed. Send in the recovery team, but maintain extreme caution. We can't risk them noticing the pattern. Sarah watched as the feed showed their specialists moving in, disguised as scavengers. The vanguard barely paid attention to such activities. To them, humans picking through their garbage were just another sign of primitive behavior to be documented in their studies. You need to see this, Aisha called out, waving Sarah over to her workstation. She had disassembled one of the alien quantum processors, replacing key components with hybrid systems of their own design. Watch what happens when we introduce chaos into the equations. The processor's efficiency suddenly spiked, its performance exceeding the original specifications by a factor of 10. Sarah leaned in, fascinated. They never considered that inefficiency might be useful, she mused. Their systems are too perfect, too ordered. They can't handle unpredictability. Across the chamber, other teams were making similar breakthroughs. A group of engineers had redesigned Vanguard power cells, making them smaller and more adaptable. Another team had cracked the aliens' communication protocols, finding ways to hide human transmissions in what the Vanguard considered background noise. Dr. Chen, Rodriguez called out, "We're getting reports from other bases. Moscow has successfully replicated your shield generator design. Berlin's made progress on weapons systems. Sydney's working on stealth technology." The global network of resistance cells had grown stronger, each facility focusing on different aspects of Vanguard technology. They shared their findings through a secure communication system that piggybacked on the aliens' own networks, hiding in plain sight. Sarah walked through the lab, observing the various projects. In one corner, a team was developing what they called adaptive circuitry, technology that could reconfigure itself based on usage patterns. It was something the Vanguard had never conceived of, their rigid thinking making such innovation impossible. The latest observation reports are in, Rodriguez announced, bringing up new data. The Vanguard are expanding their research programs. They're so focused on studying our biology, our societies, our primitive responses to their presence, they haven't noticed what we're building right under their noses. A transmission came in from the Berlin facility. They'd successfully integrated the adaptive technology into their weapons systems. Sydney's stealth technology had already been enhanced by similar modifications. Each breakthrough was shared across their global network, each facility building upon the other's successes. The Vanguard's latest disposal drop included their older model sensors, Rodriguez reported. They're upgrading their equipment. Perfect timing, Sarah replied. The less effective their old systems are at detecting us, the more they'll rely on their new ones, and we already know how to hide from those. The Resistance had developed a doctrine they called predictive adaptation. By studying the patterns in Vanguard technology development, they could anticipate the aliens' next improvements and prepare countermeasures before they were even needed. Dr. Chen, a young engineer, called from another station. The integration tests for the fleet's neural networks are complete. The ships aren't just sharing data, they're learning from each other's experiences. This was another concept the Vanguard had never explored. Their ships operated independently, each one a perfect but isolated unit. The human fleet would function as a collective intelligence, each vessel contributing to the whole. Begin final preparation phase, Rodriguez ordered. All bases, all facilities. We're approaching the threshold. Sarah watched as the command was relayed across their global network. In hidden facilities around the world, humanity's response to the Vanguard was nearly ready. Their ships were faster, their weapons more precise, their stealth systems undetectable to alien sensors. But their greatest weapon was one the Vanguard couldn't comprehend: the ability to adapt, to learn, to transform weakness into strength. The aliens had come to study humanity's response to advanced technology. Soon, they would learn just how thorough that response had been. They think they're watching us fade into primitive obscurity, Sarah said, monitoring the Vanguard vessel as it completed its scan and moved away. They have no idea they're watching us evolve beyond anything they imagined. The time was approaching when humanity would reveal its true capabilities. But for now, they remained hidden, growing stronger with each passing day, while their observers remained blind to the revolution happening right beneath their feet. The command center beneath Sydney buzzed with controlled tension as Major Rodriguez gave the final authorization. After 2 years of preparation, the moment had arrived. A Vanguard research fleet had descended to harvest resources from the ruins of Melbourne, providing the perfect opportunity for humanity's first strike. All squadrons report ready, the communications officer announced. Around the world, resistance bases waited for the signal to begin their coordinated attack. Sarah Chen stood at her station, monitoring the adaptive systems that had been integrated into every ship in their fleet. Neural networks are synchronized, she reported. The ships are already learning from the simulation data. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Commence Operation Phoenix. In the ruins of Melbourne, the Vanguard ships had begun their standard harvesting procedure, their massive forms hovering over the abandoned city with casual dominance. Their sensors swept the area, detecting nothing but the expected remnants of a regressed civilization. That changed in an instant. Human vessels seemed to materialize from nowhere, their adaptive stealth systems having rendered them completely invisible to Vanguard detection. The alien ships reacted with noticeable delay. They had never anticipated an attack from what they considered primitive survivors. First wave, engage, Rodriguez ordered. Let's show them what adaptation looks like. The human ships moved with unprecedented coordination, their neural networks allowing them to function as a single organism. Where vanguard vessels were powerful but rigid in their tactics, the human fleet flowed like water, each ship's movements informed by the collective experience of the whole. They're responding with standard defense protocols, Asia reported, tracking the vanguard's reaction. Exactly as predicted. The aliens' response was impressive but predictable. Massive energy shields and overwhelming firepower. But humanity had spent 2 years studying these tactics, and their ships were designed specifically to counter them. Sarah watched as the adaptive technology proved its worth. Each time the vanguard adjusted their shields, the human weapons systems automatically recalibrated, finding new frequencies to penetrate their defenses. Every exchange of fire made their targeting more precise, their maneuvers more efficient. "They're trying to call for reinforcements," the communications officer announced. "Let them," Rodriguez replied. Phase 2. Commence. Across the globe, other human squadrons revealed themselves, engaging vanguard ships at multiple locations simultaneously. Each battle provided new data for the neural networks to process, making the entire fleet more effective with every passing moment. The vanguard's response revealed their confusion. Their ships attempted to coordinate, but their rigid command structure couldn't match the fluid adaptation of the human fleet. For the first time, the aliens faced an enemy that could learn and improve during battle. "Their flagship is changing tactics," Sarah noted, studying the data. "They're attempting to analyze our technology." She allowed herself a small smile. But the systems they're scanning are already evolving beyond what they're seeing. The battle over Melbourne reached its climax as the human ships executed a maneuver that would have been impossible when the engagement began. Their adaptive systems had calculated a new attack pattern based on the accumulated combat data, creating a strategy that the Vanguard's predictive algorithms couldn't process. Multiple Vanguard ships disabled, the tactical officer reported. "No casualties on our side." The remaining alien vessels began a rapid retreat, abandoning their harvesting mission. Similar reports came in from around the globe. The Vanguard were withdrawing everywhere, their certainty of superiority shattered by this unprecedented resistance. "They're sending out a general alert," Asia announced, intercepting the alien communications. They're reclassifying Earth as a Level 1 threat. Their entire assessment of human civilization is being revised. Rodriguez turned to Sarah. "How long until they analyze our technology and develop countermeasures?" "They can try," she replied. "But they're looking at systems that are already outdated. By the time they understand what they're seeing, we'll have evolved beyond it. That's the advantage of adaptation over perfection." The command center erupted in contained celebration as the scale of their victory became clear. Humanity had not only successfully engaged the Vanguard, they had defeated them using technology that fundamentally challenged the aliens' understanding of development and progress. "All ships return to base," Rodriguez ordered. "Begin immediate analysis of combat data and integration of learned behaviors across the fleet." As the human vessels disappeared back into their hidden bases, Sarah examined the preliminary results. The adaptive systems had performed beyond their expectations, creating solutions that their designers hadn't imagined possible. "They'll be back," she said, already working on improvements based on the battle data. "And they'll be better prepared next time." "So will we," Rodriguez replied. "Every encounter makes us stronger." That's something they still don't understand. The Vanguard had arrived on Earth expecting to find subjects for study. Instead, they had found equals, perhaps even superiors, in technological innovation. Their greatest mistake had been in assuming that humanity would remain static, unchanged by their presence. As the resistance prepared for the inevitable counterattack, they knew that the real battle was just beginning. But for the first time since the Vanguard's arrival, the future held more promise than fear. Humanity had proven that adaptation and innovation could overcome even the most advanced static technology. The observers had become the observed, and their lessons were only beginning. The Vanguard's response came 3 days later. Massive warships emerged from hyperspace, their arrival turning the sky into a kaleidoscope of quantum distortions. This wasn't a research fleet. It was an armada designed to crush the unexpected resistance once and for all. In the Sydney Command Center, now serving as humanity's primary headquarters, Sarah Chen studied the incoming vessels with intense focus. "They've modified their ships," she observed, "exactly as we predicted." Major Rodriguez stood at the Central Command Station, watching as reports flowed in from resistance bases worldwide. "How long until their new systems are fully mapped?" "The adaptive networks are already analyzing them," Aisha replied from her station. "Every scan they make of us gives us more data about their own capabilities." The Vanguard's initial transmission was brief and absolute. "Primitive species, your resistance has been classified as unacceptable deviation. Prepare for immediate technological quarantine and regression protocols." Sarah couldn't help but smile at their choice of words. "They still think they can force us back to a primitive state. They haven't realized that's impossible. We're not just using their technology anymore. We've transcended it." "All bases, execute Operation Prometheus," Rodriguez commanded. Across the globe, humanity's evolved fleet emerged from hiding. But unlike their first engagement, they didn't bother with stealth. This time, they wanted the Vanguard to see exactly what they were facing. The human ships had changed dramatically in the days since the Melbourne battle. Their adaptive systems had processed every detail of that encounter, evolving new configurations and capabilities. Each vessel was now significantly more advanced than it had been during their first victory. "They're scanning us," Aisha reported. "Their sensors are trying to analyze our modifications." "Let them look," Sarah replied. "By the time they understand what they're seeing, we'll have already evolved beyond it." The Vanguard fleet launched their attack with overwhelming force, exactly as anticipated. Their weapons had been enhanced, their shields reinforced, their tactics adjusted to counter what they had witnessed in Melbourne. But they were still fighting the last battle, while humanity's forces had already adapted to fight the next one. The human fleet moved with impossible coordination, their neural networks having evolved to process combat data in microseconds. Each ship's actions were informed not just by its own experiences, but by the collective intelligence of the entire fleet. Where the Vanguard fought as individual units, humanity fought as a single organism. "Their new shields are failing to adapt," the tactical officer announced. "Our weapons are already bypassing their updated frequencies." The space above Earth became a testament to the power of adaptation over static perfection. Vanguard ships, despite their impressive modifications, found themselves unable to counter attacks that evolved mid-battle. Their attempts to analyze and respond to human tactics were outdated before they could be implemented. "They're transmitting a priority signal to their homeworld," the communications officer reported. "They're requesting guidance on handling technological anomalies." Sarah monitored the adaptive system's performance as the battle progressed. The neural networks were now creating combat solutions that no human or Vanguard had ever conceived, developing strategies that emerged from the synthesis of collective combat experience. "Multiple Vanguard capital ships have suspended operations," Aisha announced. "They appear to be studying us." "Finally," Sarah said, "they're beginning to understand." A new transmission came from the Vanguard flagship, its tone markedly different from their previous communications. "Human species, we request immediate cessation of hostilities for diplomatic exchange. Your technological evolution presents unprecedented parameters." Rodriguez looked to Sarah, who nodded. "They're not just seeing our ships now, they're seeing their own failure. Their entire approach to technological development is being challenged by what we've achieved." "All ships, hold position," Rodriguez ordered, "but maintain adaptive analysis. We'll talk, but from a position of strength." The battle paused as the Vanguard struggled to process what they had witnessed. Their perfect, unchanging technology had been outmaneuvered by systems that grew stronger with every engagement. Their rigid hierarchy faced a force that could innovate and adapt in real time. They're launching a general broadcast, the communications officer reported. It's a formal recognition of human technological sovereignty. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. The vanguard, who had arrived as supreme observers studying primitive subjects, were now acknowledging humanity as equals, perhaps even superiors, in technological achievement. They're requesting technical exchange protocols, Aisha said, her voice filled with disbelief. They want to learn from us. Sarah thought about the journey that had brought them here. From scavenging alien scraps to surpassing their makers, humanity had proven that true advancement came not from achieving perfection, but from the constant drive to evolve and improve. The adaptive systems are still running, she noted, watching as the neural networks continued to process and evolve even during the ceasefire. They never stop learning, never stop growing. That's something the vanguard will have to understand if they want to exchange knowledge. As diplomatic channels opened between the two species, the stars above Earth witnessed something unprecedented. The observers becoming the students, the primitive species becoming the teachers. The vanguard had arrived expecting to study humanity's response to advanced technology. Instead, they had become part of an object lesson in the power of adaptation, innovation, and the indomitable human spirit. The age of human technological quarantine was over. The age of human technological leadership was just beginning.